On a quiet morning in the coastal town of Destin, Florida, the loudest sound you'd expect to hear is the gentle crash of Gulf waves. But residents walking down a nearby street noticed something entirely different. Barely audible over the ocean breeze was a faint, desperate cry coming from beneath the pavement. Following the sound led them to a heavy iron grate set into the sidewalk. Beneath that steel grid was a cold, dark storm drain, a subterranean concrete trap. Trapped at the very bottom was a tiny, shivering kitten. She was hungry, frightened, and too weak to scale the vertical walls on her own. The onlookers quickly realized that coaxing her out wouldn't be enough. The drain was deep, the opening too narrow, and breaching the concrete safely required specialized tools they simply didn't have. Knowing they couldn't safely reach her, the neighbors stepped back and dialed the Destin Fire Rescue team. The localized auditory disturbance had officially escalated into a specialized confined space rescue operation. Within minutes, a massive red fire engine rolled up to the curb. The heavy machinery and armored personnel were a stark contrast to the fragile life trapped below. The crew immediately prepped for a confined space operation, carefully lowering ropes and specialized safety gear through the narrow iron grate. One of the firefighters began the tight descent into the shaft. Every movement was deliberate to avoid knocking debris onto the animal. It was a tense visual, a first responder in heavy turnout gear awkwardly maneuvering his bulk through a restrictive microenvironment that offered almost zero margin for error. Getting past the iron grate solved the immediate logistical problem, but the cramped, pitch-black space meant the rescuers had to operate at an incredibly careful tempo. Reaching the bottom introduced a second challenge. The kitten was terrified, and the arrival of a giant human triggered her survival instinct. She backed away, retreating further into the darkest corner of the drain. The firefighter had to freeze. Advancing further might cause the animal to injure herself in panic. Instead of forcing the grab, the rescuer shifted tactics. He lowered his posture and slowly, carefully reached out an open, gloved hand into the shadows to bridge the gap. Then, leaning in, he whispered to her quietly, "It's okay, we've got you." That small reassurance was enough to break through the terror, and she finally stopped retreating. Allowing herself to be scooped up, the kitten was gently lifted out of the concrete shaft and into the morning sunlight, met immediately by cheers from the relieved neighbors. The team had brute force to breach the trap, but calculated gentleness actually completed the extraction. Back above ground, the team immediately shifted to triage. They wrapped the shivering kitten in a warm towel to stabilize her body temperature and offered her fresh water to combat her dehydration. Overseeing this operation was Captain Britt Clark, one of the primary first responders on the scene. As he helped dry off the tiny rescue, Captain Clark felt an immediate emotional connection to the animal they had just pulled from the dark. Right there on the sidewalk, he made a permanent decision. Captain Clark adopted her on the spot, choosing the name Bee. Today, Bee is a healthy, safe, and thriving pet, living comfortably in a new environment with the man who saved her. Heroism is the intersection of specialized capability and deep compassion. The commitment to protect the most vulnerable often results in a permanent bond that benefits the rescuer as much as the rescued.